March 29th, 1986 at Jack's house.
And this is
Continued.
yet in,
Okay.
what do you call that street
we're
there, the
recording.
richest street there on
The Worth Avenue.
No, we're
White
recording.
Avenue. But if you're going to ask me now in the lake probably.
We're recording
For
now.
pictures.
Are you going to ask me questions? or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you questions. We're just warming up here. We're recording. We're ready to go. Okay, this is at Jack's house. We're gonna continue the history of the family. This morning we had Edie, and now our younger brother Jack. Okay.
The youngest.
The youngest brother. This is true. Okay, so where I wanted to start, Jack, is talking about some of the earliest things that you can remember. In other words, I'm talking about, if you can, I don't know if you can remember, not just your father and your mother, but if you can remember anything from the generation before, I don't know if you can.
His grandparents.
Oh, yes, I remember my grandmother, my grandfather.
Which side?
Mother's.
On my mother's side.
What do you remember?
Well, we lived with them.
Stories,
We-
putting him to bed.
We lived with them, and
He told him if he wasn't a good boy, the Vil Lagoon is going to
you want to
kidnap
tell it, Laura? You want to
I
speak
want to
to me?
refresh your memory.
I do.
Oh, you do? Good, go.
There were many times that during the winter time, in really freezing weather,
Mm-hmm.
and we had no heat at all in the home. And he used to take the a quilt, feathered quilt, and he would put it against the oven that they used to bake during Friday. Friday and Saturday. He used to bake for Saturday, and he put it against the warm oven wall. And when we went to sleep, he would come running in and covering me and my cousins. We slept together, and it was a beautiful memory. I remember my grandfather used to take us to the temple, and
Why did you take us to the Schwitz?
he used to take me Friday. Yes, I'll never forget this. Being that you reminded me of the Schwitz. When I was about, I'd say 8 years old, and there was I'd say it wasn't a whirlpool. It was a small pool in the bathhouse, and I thought it was just up to my neck. And I jumped in and I started drowning. And I was trying to reach a pipe. There was a pipe there. I didn't know that was this hot pipe. And I grabbed a hold of it with my hands, and it was a steam pipe. And I started screaming, and my grandpa ran in, grabbed me off the pipe. And well, I would say that he saved me, because I certainly would have drowned. It was way over my head. But we had some good memorable times. Yet I must say that I remember things that there were times we were starving. We didn't have no food to eat. I remember my mother going to the small town of Machev, and she brought back eggs for us, to feed us. She walked miles. I remember my mother, after the First World War, we had a mountain where there was, the town used to put away potatoes for, from summer to last us into the winter. And at that time we had, after the Second World War, they called them, what did they call them? Those guys, those fellas that came running, from, they went into small towns and raped the people,
With a B, but
what did they call them? What did we call them?
Baluchki.
What did they call them?
Yeah,
They went away from the armed forces and ran into small towns like Libovna. And it was like dozens of them. And what did they
They
call
were
them?
deserters? Yeah.
They were not deserters. After the war, you see, they
Peasants
came,
turned around on
they
the
came to,
Jews.
right, they came to rape and kill and get whatever they possibly can. That's it. What is it?
Holocaustis.
Belchaftzes.
Yeah, Belfastis. I knew it was a big.
It was.
Yeah,
It was in the American paper and the news
And they,
was reported those things
and
because
they Belchaftzes.
I used to receive letters.
And they came into the town, and my mother was trying to get some potatoes, and a lot of people, and it was like where the mountain was, there were doors and like a tunnel inside of the mountain where potatoes were storage for the winter time. And these Beklofts is what he called them.
Holocaustis. That's what they were.
They came over there and just shot the people inside of the tunnel.
Yeah, they did a lot of damage.
And I saw my
People
mother
killed a lot.
dragging out these that they shot at, and she just dragged them out, and I saw these bodies lying full of blood. These are memories I can't forget. I also remember that they came into my grandfather's. We had a big yard there, and one of them was about to take the bayonet with the gun and put it through the ear of my aunt, Itke. And Edie, my grandfather, ran towards them, and my grandfather grabbed a hold of this Beklofts, whatever you call them,
Yeah.
and
And
right in the bayonet, he almost took his hand off. My
he
grandfather.
was a very strong
He
man.
was so, you know,
He was a very powerful man.
very powerful. I watched that in my
I don't
life.
know. This is
I
the
was
time-
8, 9, you know, I
He
only
was-
came here
he
when I was
was-
10 years old.
He was a tall fellow with broad shoulders, very broad shoulders.
White beard, I remember when he was.
Very
I
white.
saw
Yeah,
the
he had a
white- I
beard.
have a
He
picture.
had such
But
long
he had a
beard,
lot of
like
he had a lot of guts. And,
Yeah, he had a lot.
took no guff from anyone, because that little town, whenever they needed to have an arbitrator and discuss, you know, if this one had a fight with this one, they came to my grandfather. He should be the one to
Mediator.
arbitrate, the mediator. Who is right and who's wrong. Many cases I've heard of the.
So was my father.
So with my 8, 9 years of experience that I had in Europe, can never get out of my mind.
Well, your grandfather was for several of those years like your father, because your father was gone, wasn't he? I mean, he was in the house.
I only saw my father once.
I showed it.
somewhat.
I showed a picture from the grandma. I showed the picture.
Yeah.
This is the grandma.
You
That's-
look
that's-
something.
that's,
You look
you know,
almost the
her
image
husband.
of my father.
She was a very little one, and she was very short, and he was.
You mean my
Twice the height.
grandfather? My
Yeah,
grandfather.
your grandfather and your grandmother. Your grandmother was a little one, a little
Yeah.
Bobby.
My father, I only knew him when I came to the United States. He planted a seed. I was one of the seeds.
That's right, you, because then.
Yeah, because when I came to the United States, and I was 10 years old, and he died at age 43, and I don't know whether he was, yeah, he must have been at my bar mitzvah. I only knew him 3 years.
Right. So your
But
grand.
those 3 years is like a,
You
life,
mean, you
like
mean,
a
you mean,
lifetime
you
I
mean
knew
you
him.
only knew him when you came to the United States?
That's all.
That's-
So-
Yeah.
And those 3 years was like a young, and we were talking about it, Sheldon, you know.
He
But
was-
you need a mother, you need a father in order for the children.
Right.
Well, these 3 years,
He was a very learned man.
these 3 years
Made a lot of
In
difference.
Judaic,
gave
in
me
Judaic
a
studies.
right. These 3 years gave me an experience of a father that I respected very, very highly.